it all adds up. But the most important thing is just being able to say good job. For the CEO, no matter how big they are, to go to that brand new technician they hired, shake their hand and learn a little bit about them goes a long way. And that's the way my company will always be, no matter how large we get.
Being that individual that has that relationship that brought in a superstar company just makes everybody look good, right? And then the client is also, that from A to Z that they're so well taken care of as well.
I believe that anybody can be developed and to be able to achieve. A lot of the employees, the technicians, the younger kids that are working for us, they can come here and learn a lot of skills that'll bring them anywhere. The people that I'm paying to get fire certified, water certified, mold certified, CPT certified, mostly my managers, but I plan to increase that level.
Filling any position regardless of what the industry is hard enough, right? But when you're having a position that needs to be filled by someone who has attention to detail and that's going to care for somebody else's possessions, it seems like it's a whole new element.
Owning any type of restoration business is demanding of your time, your energy, and resources. And that's why we're here. This is Restoration Domination. If you're a contractor in water mitigation, mold remediation, biohazard cleanup, roofers, or public adjusters, you'll learn how to dominate using some of the techniques and strategies that our guests will share. We'll interview top industry insiders, movers and shakers, hustlers and hackers, and anyone dominating their industry. This is Restoration Domination. Hustle, hack, and dominate. And here's your host, Rico Garcia.
All right, guys, what is going on? Welcome to another episode of Restoration Domination. Today, we've got a very special guest, and he's probably going to be talking about one of the sides of the business that most of us either are not equipped to do or have no real plan in place to go ahead and really accommodate this portion of the business, which is really content. So today we are joined by the one and only Nick Ford, the CEO and president of Pack on the Go. Nick, thank you so much for joining us today. Are you ready to help us dominate?
Yes, sir, Rico. Thanks for having me, buddy. I appreciate it.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So fill in some of the gaps to the intro. Let us know who you are and what exactly it is that your company does and services that you provide, things of that nature.
Sure, no problem. I appreciate it. Again, my name is Nick Ford. I founded the company. We're in business 16 years now. We went through quite a few pivots over the years. Started 16 years ago as a one-man show. This is a replica of my first box truck. We started with packing and shipping high-end art and antiques. Before that, I was managing a shipping store for 4 years. As things evolved, I got into the full service relocation side of things. We did a lot of hand-holding, senior relocation. Fast forward a little bit, about 8-9 years ago, I started doing some contract work for a few different restoration companies in the area. I was introduced to the term we call pack out. It's about 8-9 years ago, and with what I did and the way we handled it, it kind of evolved into our main focus. About 2-3 years ago, we now primarily 100% only handle insurance-related projects, managing people's contents. We're located here in Deerfield. We're about to take on another warehouse in Pompano, and we have a location in Lakeland. We serve the entire state of Florida, and it's strictly contents.
Which is amazing. So let's talk about like the evolution of that journey, right? Obviously, you already had a background with, dealing with delicate, items and things of that nature. Once you start getting into the whole insurance, again, like you said, the air quotes, right? The pack out portion of the business. Was that just simple for you guys? It was you didn't really skip a beat, or was there a bit of a learning curve there, considering just how different, not the contents themselves are, but the billing and all of the lingo and all of that stuff? What was that learning curve like?
Was definitely a bumpy curve. A lot of ups and downs, kind of learning the ins and outs. And I kind of fiend for the knowledge, learning all the different layers and different relationships involved on every claim. So when we first started doing it, the way that it opened my eyes to it, it was something that we could turn into a machine. Coming from the relocation business and packing and shipping, we would take a lot of contents out of one home and try to fit them into another home. We would try to estimate that, and it would be based on the customer's decision, where they want to put it. Is this stuff going to fit? So when we got a taste of doing the pack out, and this is before we were doing full restoration. Now we handle full restoration, textiles, electronics, upholstery, you name it, we do it all in-house. But this is when we were doing what we call storage only or return as is. It was something I saw we could turn in as a machine. We take pictures, we document, we introduced ICAT technology, which is a contents inventory software that we document everything. We were able to go into a room, take detailed pictures, barcode photo inventory, pack it out, store it. Contractors do their work, and we put it back exactly the way we found it using mirror pack image. There was no insured or customer guidance necessary. We put it back just the way they want it. If they made some renovations, put up a new wall, or did, things change. But it was something that I saw I could train my guys, my staff to do right every time. And for the most part, carriers are willing to pay to do it right, what we provide.
Right.
The learning curve from switching to what I was doing cash on delivery to playing the game and chasing your money, that was a tough one, But with the way we have it, the transparency, our GPS tracked hours, photo inventory of everything. And I've developed a software for about 10 years that gives us more accurate pricing of what an item costs to pack, move, and wrap. And of course, using the cleaning guidelines and Xactimate, we've been able to put together basically like a secret recipe for the way we estimate.
Right.
But learning the insurance curves and learning how the public adjuster comes in play, dealing with consultants, dealing with a lot of different types of restoration contractors, we learn what they want, what they're looking for, and we make it easy.
Right.
We learn it's just removing the liability.
Right. So talk to me about the relationship between your organization and restoration contractors, whether that's, fire, smoke restoration, mold remediation, whatever that scenario might look like. Because it feels, at least to me, when I'm having all of these conversations, we kind of have a divided camp, right? We have people that like, oh yeah, we'll just try to figure it all out and do it all in house. Which, me personally, I don't think that's a great idea if you're not built for that. Like if your backbone isn't contents, I don't know. There's just seems like so many things can go wrong there, right? And then there's the other side of the camp, which is, hey, just outsource it. Just go ahead and get the right people in place to do it.
Right.
What's your experience on that?
With experience of what we provide we have restoration partners all over the state. We, probably doing work regularly with, a few dozen of them. And then more and more every day. So our relationship with them is that everybody that's in the restoration business, they didn't start thinking about the contents. They started about doing it, working in a clean space. When they get into the reconstruction sides, they want to work clean. They want to be able to bring in subcontractors that may be subpar and not worry about the liability. They can come in and do their demo. They can come in and do. When you rely on subcontractors to start moving grandma's china cabinet and this and that, this is where things happen. We provide an easy system for us to come out. We like to do an initial walkthrough, not on emergency, but we'd love to be on the initial walkthrough. And when you realize that you can't complete these renovations with these contents where they're at, this is where we like to be thought of. We come in when we're dealing with a return as is where the contents aren't damaged. We create a proposal that is a flat rate for the full pack out, the storage you need for the project, and exact pack back. This is a flat rate. Nobody else provides this but my company. We're able to provide this to most restoration contractors. They're usually easily able to put their 10 and 10 on it, submit it. We can do it that way. Or if it's a situation where we need to deal with the carrier directly, we can also do that. And this keeps you totally out of liability. There's a couple different scenarios depending on the job. If we're dealing with a fire and we're doing all the contents, we do everything for the insured. All the hand holding, we go over the non-salvage, we do the valuation, we do the disposal. We basically get the claim moving along weeks ahead of time rather than waiting for some boutique inventory company to come in. But every restoration company, every owner, they run their business a little bit differently. How they want it and how they want to incorporate us. The majority of restoration contractors have used outsourced contents and had a bad experience.
Right.
So their natural thought is to go ahead and bring it in-house. I can control it. But when your guys get a pack out or contents once or twice a month, how do you expect them to be experienced in doing it? This is what we do day in, day out. You can't take John from demoing a floor and then have him go ahead and pack grandma's china. It's just, what's going to happen. But with us, we're able to keep a steady flow of business because we are no conflict to any restoration companies. It may teeter a little bit on the content side, but what we enable is more contractors to sign more jobs. We can get this done, packed out. You can get it signed. We time it where we can pack this out where you're ready to get in there. This way you can go on and continue to where you make your money.
And the other side of that, which is, again, and people don't openly talk about this, and this is where I'm a little bit against the grain, it boils down to dollar figures. This is really like, at its core, it boils down to dollar figures. They're like, wait, hold on. I've got this project. I don't know everything that I need to do about this project, but if I try to give it a whirl and do contents, I can make X amount of dollars, right? But if I just outsource it or just, contact Nick, maybe I don't make any money. But that's not necessarily true, because there's still the O&P, and more importantly, time is money. So if you can speed through that process, right, and get to the actual demolition, the restoration side, without even having to worry about, the contents aspect, and then you're still wetting your beak on the O&P depending on how you structure the deal, I mean, that's still a good deal at the end of the day.
Right. That's exactly it, is being able to not just sign the new jobs, but be able to get from demo to check. If you can complete that, you can sign a job, and you can wait for the insured to pack their contents because they're too sensitive. You could wait for them to do this. You can wait for them to do that. But we can come in, make them feel comfortable with our photo inventory, which gives them online access to see everything. So the biggest problem with contents is most insureds, they had some bad experience with a moving company, and they're afraid of us coming in and removing it. And they ask you, can you just work around it? This happens a lot. And you should say that you have coverage for this. This is how we're going to take care of your project. We have a reliable company that specializes in this to come in and take care of it. And even for contractors that are doing it themselves, to let them know that it makes sense for us to remove these contents. We shouldn't have to move it around. But once they get comfortable, they show them a version of the online inventory. We barcode and scan everything in our warehouse. So if they need a passport from the second drawer, which happens more often than we're able to pull that in record time.
Right.
All kinds of things. College, but it happens more often than you realize. This is another reason why we're so detailed on our inventory. But once they get comfortable with us, we take the time to sit down with them, go over everything, and you could just picture in your mind, trying to work in a living room full of sensitive content with a bunch of 6 mil, 1 mil plastic covered over it, thinking it's not going to be dusty at the end of the project.
Exactly.
But getting people to trust in a company like us is very tough. We've never done one pack out for a restoration company. They've always called us back.
Right.
The way that we quote and the way we estimate is very, very detailed. We always quote it for a full service pack back, but we can adjust that menu depending on the carrier. If there's limited coverage or you're getting pushback, we don't have to completely unpack. We can sell them what we call a drop and run, but kind of stage. We set up their furniture, we place the boxes neatly, and get them in order. But for the most part, our flat rate proposals are approved. And when you bring us in, we're not the contractor, but we're at the beginning and we're at the end of the claim. We're the last one. We're not, until their shoes are matched and their beds are made, the claim isn't finished. We're really at the tail end, and really at the beginning. You can't really start the work until that content is secure and safe.
Right.
So we work together with contractors to come up with the best plan. We're aware of the labor issues and subcontractor issues, and we can be flexible and mendable to make sure this looks like we're doing everything we can for the carrier in that respect.
And looking like a superstar is so important, right? As the contractor who's signing this restoration project, right? And by aligning yourself with an organization, let's say like yours, right? That this is what you specialize in. Like your crew's doing this day in and day out. A great point that you made. It's not a restoration company that's doing this once every, maybe once a month if they're lucky, right? Or once a quarter. Like your guys are doing this day in and day out. Everything is categorized. If a customer has an issue, like you mentioned, passport in the second drawer, for you to be able to pull that record time because everything is so beautifully documented, that makes you, the contractor, the restoration guy out there who's not built for this, look like a superstar throughout this entire process. Because they may not be contacting, Pack on the Go directly for that content. Because again, maybe you're already there, doing some work or whatever the case may be. But you being that individual that has that relationship that brought in a superstar company just makes everybody look good. And then the client is also, that from A to Z that they're so well taken care of as well, which is why I think that it's such an interesting dynamic. Let's talk about billing, because I've spoken to a lot of your guys, and I know that you guys there's a lot of concerns in the industry about how to bill contents, but you guys have really, really tied this thing down. And, what's the experience that you have on the billing side of things? And, how is it that you guys are getting these things approved as quickly as I hear that you are?
When it comes to contents, we know it's one of the most difficult things to estimate, right? If you're quoting on a job and you're doing reconstruction, there's only so much square footage. There's only so much drywall. There's only so much crown molding. Contents can be anything. You could have 5 bedrooms worth of contents in a 2-bedroom house. So when we put together our pricing and we do our calculations, we're talking about return as is projects where we're not dealing with heavily affected mold or fire. For over a decade now, I think I mentioned it. I've been developing a software that it does by some inventory pricing. We don't list these prices for plenty of reasons, but when I choose couch in our inventory, there's a set price what it takes to wrap, pack, move that inventory, store it, and bring it back. So we're able to calculate that price, and when adjusters or our referral sources understand where our prices are derived from, there's a lot more science to it. Most contractors, when it comes to contents, it's pretty much take this, throw it at the wall, does it stick? Or they base it on a previous experience for a similar size square footage house. But depending on the type of content, if we're dealing with high end, we're dealing with low end. I mean, for the most part, we wrap and protect everything. But if we're dealing with high end content, it's kind of a different level. And basically, we are the contents company. I think we get approved easier because that's what we specialize in. That's what we do. All our storage is done in-house, air-conditioned, vaulted storage, racked. Our facility is open to come by anytime. I think those are some of the factors that help us get it across. But trying to speak to an adjuster that's never been in the field, never thought about wearing a blue collar, never doesn't understand what it's like to work out there, having those conversations to say, to get them the picture in their mind in their own house. Like, could you really paint your house without an excessive amount of work? Trying to explain that you're going to be packing. A lot of times what we do is compare with the insured and the adjuster is compare it to the last time they moved. Every time, everybody who thinks about their last move it's a pain in the gut. You remember unpacking boxes for 2-3 weeks?
Right.
This is not right for the insured. You have coverage for this. You shouldn't have to do this. You shouldn't have to take 2 weeks off to unpack everything. But sometimes when you get the right adjuster and you can have that conversation, you hit them, they're like, you know what, you're right. And this is part of the negotiation I teach my estimators to explain. I have big value on what I do. My mission statement is putting lives back together one box at a time. And I truly stand behind that with our employees. And when they feel that on the phone and everything like that, it goes a long way. There's nothing made up. There's science behind it. If we do a job, what we call a pack attack, meaning we're going ahead and doing it without approval, which has to happen a lot of times. Can't communicate with the adjuster. We got to get in there. We know that we're going to save the carrier money by getting this out so this place can be remediated. We do that by time and material, but our rates are not Xactimate rates. You can't make money with Xactimate rates. We all know that, especially in what we do. I can't bring temps in to do what we do. This is all our employees that are handling content. They go through a training program, which is ever growing. I think with that information, when it comes back and we get some pushback on some of those jobs that we've had to go ahead and, take care of without approval, we're usually able to justify the costs. And the only way that I reduce it is I reduce the level of pack back, meaning that I have to tell Gertrude that we're not going to be able to unpack all her boxes.
Right.
We're going to have to leave her in a sea of boxes. And then if she's, 70-year-old woman and we got to try to explain that to the adjuster, they may understand, but going over those certain things, it's important.
Right. And this is, something interesting too, is that you don't use Xactimate pricing per se, because again, it's so difficult to make money, especially if you're like a real company. And I say, air quotes, real company, because you can go ahead and have any contractor, so-called contractor, do any project that you could possibly want, and they could probably undercut Xactimate pricing. But if they don't have general liability, workers' comp, if they don't have commercial vehicle insurance, if they don't have a building overhead, if they don't have all of these things, and they're just a guy in a truck, yeah, of course they can do it for whatever, right? But when you're building a real company and you have real systems, policies in place, and training in place, you have to go based on your own overhead, your own profit that you're looking to make, not only for yourself but for your company. And a lot of contractors in our industry are very frightened of either bulk pricing or their own price list that they need to come up with. So I just think I'm really glad that you brought that up, because again, just because you're not using Xactimate or some insurance platform doesn't mean that you're going to get automatically that much more resistant. So long as you have everything in place to be able to say, hey, look, this is why it's justifiable, right?
Yeah. We get, with some of our flat rates, we'll get some kickback from some carriers that say, "Oh, I need to see the hours and I need to see the boxes." I go, "Well, why do you need to see that? We pay our employees not just hourly; they get paid by productivity. This is how we take care of the content. This is how we reduce the claims after the claims." And not saying that nothing happens, but when it does happen, we are totally responsible.
Right.
If a glass breaks, I already have my girls ordering it on Amazon before she even has time to drop a tear. We'll find it. We have resources. We take care of everything when something happens. None of that has to worry. So that goes with the restoration contractors. I bet a dozen of the people that'll be listening to this one have some broken item that's sitting in their office that they're responsible for.
Right.
That's on me. That's on us.
Right.
We take care of that. And we have packing training and a lot of different methods that help prevent or reduce damage. But going back to the pricing and stuff like that, when we're asked to reduce this to hourly, it's still based on our hourly rates. What we feel is fair enough, which is not the profit margin I want to be at, but it is fair. It's reduced. You mentioned insurance. The amount of the insurance that I have to carry because I am in control of everybody's contents, it's mind-blowing. We have to have not just your basic million. I have to have an umbrella policy. I have auto, I have cargo, I have, liability, the workman's comp. We all have that. When you're not using temp services where they're coming in and you don't have to pay, we charge for our people by the hour rate because they've been through a training program. We've paid for 2 weeks of training before they go into the field the majority of the time. And there's continuing education and continuing meetings and all that. I factor all that into our pricing.
Right.
You can't just send somebody out. But yeah, that's the point. And that's something I'm pretty strong about because when we started to deliver our estimates via Xactimate, which I only made mandatory about 3 years ago. This is the way carriers want to see it. Doesn't mean I can't change it for the way I need it to be. It was just mind blowing what was in there and that what you'd have to do to actually make a profit, which is
Pretty
not
amazing,
the way
right?
I operate.
You're like,
Yeah,
it's got, they kind of handcuff you a little bit. And this is where, and again, kind of getting a little bit off topic, but I'm sure that you see this with, even within your sector of the market, this is where, quote unquote, they call fluffing up an estimate, right? Where you have all of these additional line items that you put in that you may not, it's questionable as to whether or not it was actually done or if it needed to be done, but you're having to put that stuff in there just so that you can get to the regular profit margin to cover your guys, which is just this big flaw in the way that insurance looks at billing. And look, we get it. They're out to make a profit. They're a business also. And the way that they make a profit is by paying as little as possible. So playing devil's advocate, like we understand both sides, but we do a lot of, our own price list when it comes down to billing. Certainly not the cheapest and certainly not the most expensive, but we do whatever works for us on our side. Let's talk about company mission, man, because I think that this is like one of those topics that is so important. Like how many, you've got a pretty decent sized crew. I mean, how many guys do you have and gals working at your organization now?
Between both locations, about to be a third location, we're about 30.
So 30
total.
30 personalities, 30 people that you're trying to get them to buy into your company, putting lives back together one box at a time. What was that journey like for you, right? From, your first couple of hires to where you are now, how did that all transpire?
It's quite a journey. I do think back to the days when it was just myself in this mobile box truck packing stuff on the go. That's why the name is there. Same name, 16 years, same reputation. Going through the journey, every time that number increases, it does pose another degree of difficulty. So I'm kind of at the stage of a company where you're, what I've read and what I do. I read a lot of books. I read a lot of things that help me get this far. But reading about when you hit that 25 mark, which we've been teetering between 25, 30, before COVID, we were a little bit larger. We kind of had a little crunch, but we've narrowed our focus. But getting the challenge, maintaining the culture, trying to get the right culture to spread between my office and field, always a challenge. It's a challenge in any business when you're dealing with managers versus your front line. But posing regular meetings, getting people to stand behind our mission statement, to really be concerned at the end result is the most important thing to me. Getting paid, pleasing the restoration company, pleasing the contractor, but if we can get that insured back home and do everything we could to get them placed, the majority of my employees, you can't really tell this until they're with us for a good 3 to 6 months. Right. So on the newer employees, that's something we have to kind of gauge. we make that an importance every time. We have a full staff meeting every month here in Deerfield and then in Lakeland. These are some of the things we go over, but continually improving, focusing on the positives has been a major change for my business.
Right.
We're naturally, as managers and owners, we want to bring up the negative and the unlocked trucks and the forgotten equipment and and just we often just discontinue what they're accomplishing out there.
Right.
We're out there moving mansions in record time.
Right.
And because they forgot something that was on their checklist, that's what we focus on. We really need to push forward and understand that it's hard out there. We're working a lot of different elements. We try to do a good job taking care of our employees, make sure they got the break time, make sure they're fed, make sure a lot of those things happen. It all adds up, but the most important thing is just being able to say good job. For the CEO, no matter how big they are, to go to that brand new technician they hired, shake their hand and learn a little bit about them goes a long way. And that's the way my company will always be, no matter how large we get. Pretty hands-on, even though I'm working a lot more on the business. I still make the time to make the meetings and try to get in front of everybody. So that's important.
You're right. So just having that connection, that connection from the top, if you will, to the guy that's in the truck who's actually moving stuff around, making sure that, hey, they did 99 things right, perfectly well, not to necessarily focus on that one thing and just, beat them up over that one thing that they forgot, which probably was minutia anyways, right? And just making them feel welcome and as part of the team. How have you gone about finding good quality people that buy into your mission, that have the degree of attention to detail that's necessary, the care and the love for other people's possessions? Because filling any position, for regardless of what the industry is hard enough, right? But when you're having a position that needs to be filled by someone who has attention to detail and that's going to care for somebody else's possessions, it seems like it's a whole new element. So what's your process? What are you looking, what characteristics are you looking for to fill those kind of positions?
Well, it's as for everybody, it's getting more and more challenging, to try to find somebody for that level of care. When we interview the men, it's a different kind of person we need. You're not bringing in that bull in the china shop. You're not bringing in somebody because of their strength or because of their stamina in the heat. You're bringing in somebody that, that's decent shape, that's able to take care of things. We have all the right dollies, all the right equipment, all the right straps, this is very important. I'm a small guy, vertically challenged. I used to do all this stuff by myself back in the day. So it's not about that big muscle guy that has to come in and move these certain things. It's all physics, teaching them the right way and kind of explaining that at the interview process and trying to get that through to them. But the fact is you can interview somebody all day and see if they're the great candidate. But we've kind of adapted a different policy lately. Is bring them in. I may take a hit on the background check and take a hit on some of the training, but we can kind of feel that person out. I know we've not chose to hire certain people that might have been great if we provided the right training at the beginning, and that's what we're working on a lot. I think I might have mentioned it to you before. We adapted Trainual.
Yes.
This is a big project for us because my vision is big. I plan to franchise in 3 to 5 years. But we are down to documenting every single process, from how to punch in to how to take out the trash to even how to tape a box.
Right.
It's all going to be in video format with a test and published. We've literally just rolled it out in the last month to our current employees. We built our handbook in it. We built our foundations, explaining the company, the mission, the values, the kind of things that I wish we were able to provide in the past, but we're making the time to do that. But finding and keeping and developing the help. Part of my mission is to develop. I started from nothing. I started my company at 24. I borrowed everything I could to buy the first truck. I believe that anybody can be developed and to be able to achieve. A lot of the employees, the technicians, the younger kids that are working for us, they can come here and learn a lot of skills that'll bring them anywhere. The people that I'm paying to get fire certified, water certified, mold certified, CPT certified, mostly my managers, but I plan to increase that level. But investing in the employees is important. knowing when to do it, how quickly to do it, that's the tough part.
Right, exactly. So the trainings that, and you're right, we did have a conversation about this, I think a couple of weeks ago, where we were talking about the SOPs and how to deliver everything that you have in your head, everything internally that you know, all of a sudden putting it down on paper, or like what you're doing with Trainual, which again, for those of you that don't know, Trainual is a online video. Well, it does have a video component to it where you can record videos on all of your SOPs. Plus, you can have PDF downloads, you can have questionnaires, you can have little tests and exams throughout the entire process. And then the management team, which is what's really amazing, the management team has the ability to go in and see the progress that each and every single person has done throughout that training. So let's say, for example, again, in a company like yours, Nick, I mean, you've got people that are answering the phones, you've got managers, you've got people in the field. Like there's tons of different positions within one company. Yep. And you can break this down. And as you're bringing in people that are for a specific department, you can just hand them that chunk, those modules for that department, and you get to see everything. The beauty about this is you don't have, as an owner, you eliminate a lot of frustration, right? Because, for example, if an employee comes to you over and over and over again, and they ask you the exact same question because they just don't get it, by the third time you're done. Like mentally, you're checking out. You're like, this guy just doesn't get it, and that may not be the case, right? But now, once you have a detailed format in video, plus you have whatever PDF it goes along with that, right? Depending on how they learn. It doesn't matter if they watch that video 70 times, as long as they get the value from the video or that training. So what's your experience been with SOPs? I think I've mentioned SOPs or some variant on how to develop SOPs on every single podcast, because again, I truly believe that you got to get it out of your head. You got to get it on paper, and you can't assume that people are going to understand what you need to get done. Like, assumptions are a huge mistake. How's it been, that transition from getting everything out of your head, getting everything that was part of the company culture and actually documented and or on video trainings?
A lot of things work in progress. It's more of getting it not just out of my head, but a lot of my managers and estimators, the ones that are running my company, getting their simpler tasks and getting them documented. We rolled out one just yesterday on a subject of how to process your time off request. It goes through my payroll company or whatever, but just something simple like that. And we're, calculating our hours of what it takes to create this. It took us 6 man hours between myself, my HR manager, and my operations manager, just to give them the link, set it up, do the screenshot. But I could probably associate 30, 40 hours of frustration where people were telling the wrong person to take their time off or didn't get on the calendar, just simple things like that. The ability, we're building the infrastructure, but what it's going to be able to do, like you said, this program, we have all kinds of documents and training here, and something changes because of whatever the reason is. We make that change. It's very hard to distribute that to our current employees. Very easy to bring it to the new employee, right? Here's your training. They get the new training. They go out with these old employees that are doing it the old way. And then you basically, it never gets done. The beauty with something like Trainual is that we can publish the subject. If we make a change on it, we make the change, we reassign it to everybody. They take it, they do the quiz, they get their certification. So it's kind of like it's a feeling of award. So everybody's starting to get a taste of it. We're in its infancy, but the importance of documenting processes, and it's no easy task. Trainual is not some magic carpet ride. It does help, it does organize, but seeing the light of how you're setting it up, once you start doing it, you realize, wow, how would they know how to do this? How would 20 of my field technicians, my front line, know how to do this the same way?
Right.
How would they do it? It's being done 10 different ways. I'll be honest, still have that issue with certain things.
Right. So
when this new employee is like, I just saw this in the training and you're not doing this. So any training that rolls out is for new employees and current employees. That's the toughest part that we've been trying to get through. Like, how do we get it to our current people?
Right.
Because they weren't provided this yet. So now we're doing it.
Right. So for the new person coming in, it's like, okay, cool, this is how it must be done. But then also getting the older people, right, the veterans that have been with your company for a while, that have been doing it their way, getting them on board too, right? With this either the new way, the new system, or making sure that it's the same across the board. So I could see where that can get really, really interesting, right?
It does, but breaking through, a few meetings later and people understanding it that I'm building this we're 30 employees. I'm building this to replicate, duplicate. We were supposed to, my goals because of COVID aren't where they should be right now, but I expected to be a little bit larger in size right now, but we're going. Everything's good. It changed us, but documenting the process, as simple as it may be. I mean, some of the contractors, they may have a checklist for their vans. They may have this machine, 4 blowers, look at the job, whatever it is, but making sure that happens. And when you make a change saying, I want to keep this sub pump on this truck, you can't just say, hey guys, we need to have this on the truck every day. I've tried it, and all of a sudden it goes missing. It's not part of the checklist. It has to go into training. It'll be resent to them, rather than the email. But it's a big process, and it's always going to be evolving. But I don't think there's any way to scale a company without documenting your processes. I was kind of stubborn in the past. I'm like, yeah, they're good. They do a good job. They're gonna, it's all right. They'll do the checklist in the morning. Common sense is a resource less found. So we need to go ahead and draw it out step by step. For my whole staff, I played this. I don't know if you've ever seen this video. It's about a daughter trying to teach the father how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You ever seen that?
Yes. Yeah, it
was great, and this got through
coding,
to them. Yeah, it got through to them. He puts the jar and puts it on on the bread, and tell them exactly how to do it, and it makes their job easier. Everything we create is to make it easier, more efficient, less straining on their body, their backs, and that's the things they don't realize. They think that I'm saying you have to use a packing table because it's extra work. But if they realized they were using a packing table, the strength and stamina in their back would last a few more hours and they wouldn't be so tired, But these are the small things that we put out. When we've tried to implement this stuff in the past, it didn't really register. You got a lot of smiles and nods, but now it's starting to work. As we're putting it on video, as we're putting it in something they can see that has, a little humor to it, not so dry.
Right.
You're able to add some videos and some GIFs and, things like that. It's been
it's a really cool software.
Well.
It's a really cool software. Yeah. I'm a big advocate for Trainial. And again, this isn't sponsored by Trainial. However, Trainial, if you're
sounds
listening,
like it, right?
If you're listening,
here's my bank account.
But there's also for again, you have 30 people that you have working for your organization. For some of the other people that are listening to that maybe have 3, 4, 5 guys, right, or gals, whatever. We have to all be so politically correct now. Before that, we used to be a general term. Now we always have to specify guys or girls.
Yeah.
But for the people that only have like 5 employees, or another great resource is just honestly, we were talking yesterday with Latif from Boss Up Solutions, and we had an extensive conversation about this, where something as simple as Loom, which is LOOM, a recording software. They have plugins for your Chrome browser, and whatever your process is while you're doing it, just record it and voice it over. You could put it on an unlisted YouTube channel, and maybe that's your the beginnings, right, of your SOPs and your video content. And then later on, once you have enough of a big organization to where you want to get a little bit more fancy, go Trainial. Well, now you've got a lot of the framework for what you were already doing, because you're not starting from scratch. So whenever you find yourself building an estimate more than 2 times in the same fashion, you should and that you're probably going to do this for another 100 times, you might as well take the time, hit the record button on your computer screen, and just talk yourself through it. It's actually a really good exercise too, because then you start to realize how much you actually know, because sometimes you just do things intuitively, right? But now, or you know how to do things really, really well, but then you can't really articulate it when you're training someone, and you catch yourself when you're recording it. You're like, wait, hold on. This doesn't make sense. I need to figure out a better way to explain it. So there's so many benefits, not only for the employees and the people on your team, but even as a leader. When you're going through this exercise, you realize, number one, how much you know, and then number 2, how much you weren't able to articulate certain aspects of your business.
Yeah, once you start trying to do what we're doing and go step by step, you're like, wow, this is it's quite a bit. And when you get frustrated because your new admin assistant wasn't able to enter this properly in the software, and because you're biased because you've been doing it for a while, you're like, oh my God, this is just went through 9 screens, and I count clicks because I built my custom workflows into my software that we switched over to last year. But
Right.
every time one of my employees can save a click on a process, this is what I kind of incentivize everybody on. When we're writing a process, is if you can save clicks, because just entering a customer's information could be 27 clicks and 4 different screens, and you're like, why didn't you got that yet? You've done it 3 times.
Right.
I've done it 30,
Right.
So we're able to do that. That Loom is built into Trainual, so that's a good place to start if you ever want to go down that path. But if you're not, you're a smaller company and you're writing your processes and you're writing a Word document, whatever it is, I just strongly encourage you use live documents. Do not use something that you're going to save or download, because that's where I failed a lot. Use a live document. If you're writing a checklist, use that live document. That's the one you're always going to change. Otherwise, if you save one, you're going to change it here. It's going to be different on this computer. Susie's going to have a different one in the office, and you end up with 4 different versions. What happens is you decide not to change it, and you just keep it the way it is because it's not there. But having Microsoft, well, I use all Microsoft. Some people use Google, whatever. But just using a live document, that's been real helpful. That's how we've been able to take some of our training from those and bring it over. But the challenge was, even when we made a change on that live document, we'd have to get it to everybody and then get them to sign off on it.
Right. So
verify that they actually read it.
Another really cool tool. Again, you're on the Microsoft side. We pretty much for all of our online storage, Google Drive is our thing. G Suite is our thing. It's just so easy. It's so intuitive, and just having a shared Drive folder and then those templates that you're talking about, we save them as a doc template. And then it's in a shared folder. So now if anybody needs access to that, or if I, as an admin, make a change to that template, to that checklist, to that, SOP for whatever that is, all I have to do is just change the template and it's done. It's just so that becomes the living document. So there's tons of ways to do it, but I definitely agree, because again, I've had that issue where I've had one document, version 1 through 15, and they were all different. And it gets to the point you're like, wait, hold on, which one am I supposed to be using? You can't find version 15, so you go back to version 13, and that's what you print out. It's just absolutely having a living document that you can update one place where everybody can have access to is a phenomenal idea. Let's again, switch gears one more time. I know that a lot of, obviously, word of mouth is huge, right? Outside of word of mouth, shaking hands, kissing babies, meeting new restoration contractors, showing them the value of what you can do for them and how you make their lives that much easier. Outside of that, handshaking aspect of the business, are you guys doing anything exciting as far as marketing or getting out there to the end consumer, or positioning yourself differently to B2B on the B2B side? What's your position on that right now?
We've been doing quite a bit getting out there. We're involved with a couple associations. This weekend we're doing FAPIA, which is the Association of Public Insurance Adjusters. We've done that virtual last year. We make sure we did Windstorm and RIA this year. This is getting us out there. We're starting to plant the seed for our eventual national presence. But getting out there, not exactly thinking about, am I going to convert this to a job? Am I going to book 12 inspections after this conference? But getting the name out there, knowing that we're growing, understanding that our goal and what we do is trying to educate people on contents. It's an afterthought usually. Just got approved for the construction. Oh shit, there's content.
Right.
Well, we better call Pack on the Go. Can you give me a quote in 24 hours and have it packed out 2 days later? And this is what we get a lot of calls on. We do our best to accommodate.
Of course.
But we're honest. We won't make promises we can't keep. But getting out there, meeting with other professionals, learning, whether it's public adjusters, carrier adjusters, we don't pick sides. We can be used, utilized, or referred by any side of it. We don't have roofs over our head if we didn't have contents. There's that reason. But learning all the different personalities, as you probably know in the restoration business, you're meeting all these guys. The last dozen, there may be some that are the same type, but there's so many different personalities.
Absolutely.
So many different ways and unless you get out there and meet with them and find the human side of them, you're not going to be able to connect. They're not going to trust you. You got to be trusted in what we do, especially if you're bringing us in on your project.
Right. Are you using video, any kind of, on the digital side of things, are you using any kind of video? Are you using social media in any capacity to add to that, trustability, likability, knowability for your business?
Not as much as I have in the past. You'll probably see bouncing around. I got quite a few videos out there, just kind of explaining the process. But I do plan to evolve into that. Looking at a couple different marketing avenues to help me with the video in-house. We do have in plan to actually do a full production of video that's going to show every aspect. This is a big thing we've been planning for. Like we had this whole thing planned last year, and I couldn't put it together because of COVID. And I was going to hire models, do the whole thing to show what we actually do. But the video, the animations, all that is great. Am I doing it as much as I like right now? No. Being able to explain the process of what you do and how you do it and how you care about it is important. Finding the time to authentically come out and, post some videos, which, I've done pretty often, but I used to do it a lot more, just running and spinning circles. But you'll see a lot more of that from me soon, especially with our new location. We're building a full training center, and this is a real important thing that I'm doing to build. This is going to be my corporate location in Pompano. I'm going to be doing an open house for everybody that's in the business, everybody I know, everything. Probably coming up in April, we're going to be fully set up. But as for on the marketing side, it feels like education, understanding what I do. Restoration too. Unless you've been through a claim, the insured doesn't really know what you do.
Right.
Same thing with a public adjuster. What is that? Unless you've had a claim. And with me, contents, you'll see my trucks, they got the fire and water and it says the contents pro, and most people don't understand it. I don't put contents restoration. Pack out doesn't mean anything to most, some restoration
right to the regular person, the regular homeowner is like a pack out. What's a pack out? Like, what is that?
Right. Yeah.
So that makes
and unfortunately sense. when they start to understand it, like I said before, they start to think about that terrible experience they had with a moving company. I don't know what the numbers are, but I came from the industry, and this is why I came away from it. I tried to redefine it for years, but 3 out of 4 people who contract with a moving company end up having a bad experience, whether it's price, damage, or lost items. It's because it's hard to control. Contents is no easy feat. It's detail, it's variables, it's tracking. But yeah, getting out there, that's what we're doing a lot. We sponsored some golf situations, starting to do a happy hour. We're going to start doing that at least once a quarter in all our areas starting next year. We're going to be doing one in February. That was really good. I had a lot of people come out that I wasn't even, didn't even know personally. Maybe I sent a few messages on LinkedIn, or, maybe we liked each other's stuff or whatever, but really getting out and getting to people in person, which has been difficult with, our COVID year. But I think we're all getting past that. I think that's super important. Even if you have those rough 12-hour days and there's a happy hour at this spot, try to get yourself or somebody from your company out there. And it's a long game. It doesn't happen in a year or two. You eventually you see that you're around, and that helps. But social media marketing.
Yeah, a lot of people end up doing, they're one-off guys, and they put on an event and that's it. Or they get a booth somewhere at an event and that's it. You never see them again, right? And they don't understand that it's a long game. There's lots of things that you can do in marketing that will give you instant gratification, and those are great. But for the most part, you gotta be, and again, with social media the way that it is today, LinkedIn, your YouTubes, your Facebooks, your Instagram, your TikTok. I mean, this list just gets bigger and bigger, right? Clubhouse, all these huge time sucks. They're all valuable, and they're all great opportunities for you to add value. But ultimately, it's about having multiple touch points for an extended period of time consistently. That's really what it's all about. So you mentioned something earlier, which was books, and that there was a lot of books that have allowed you to be where you are today. It's kind of ritual at this point that on every podcast I ask for the top book recommendations, that if you only had the ability to take 3 books with you, what would that short list of books be?
Interesting question. There's a lot of books out there, and I read primarily for personal and professional development. I've been doing that and I try to push it on my kids right now, and it's not exactly working, but I wish I could go back and tell my 20-year-old self, read this one book. But, there's several books, some of the big ones, that's what you think of, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That's, if you can get anybody to read that, it changes your personal life, your business life, which was the most important for me, to run a business, to think that you have to run a business and be stressed, which was my biggest problem. I did not feel like I was working adequately unless I was stressed completely out.
Amazing how that works, right?
That's what changed for me 5 years ago. Like I didn't feel like I was doing enough, and you still get that feeling. Are you doing enough? Are you doing the right things? Should I be talking to Rico right now, or should I? But there's a lot of different books. One book I'm just finished up was called Multipliers. This is a real good book. It called me out on a lot of things that I do wrong, in meetings and stuff like that. But it's about collecting the collective genius from all your employees, technician up to executive, but actually creating that psychological safety, letting them speak, letting them solve problems rather than you answering questions or taking over meetings and doing all that, which I've been doing a lot better in the last few years.
Right.
And that's one thing I do. I try to instill confidence in our employees and try to get them to speak up, try to get them to contribute, take some ownership. That's a really good book. Drawing a blank to even pick what was good. Start with Why. That thing at Simon Sinek. That was a big one for me.
That's amazing.
Then,
so 7 habits of highly successful multipliers, and Start with Why.
7 habits of highly effective people.
Yeah, of highly effective people. Yep. That's right. Oh God,
Start with Why.
Who's the author
and then,
on that again? I should know this because I know I have it somewhere. Either way, in the video description below and in the show notes, we are going to go ahead and drop links to each of these. What we're doing is we're running an ongoing list.
I always keep a copy.
Yep. Yeah, there you go.
Stephen Covey.
Yep. We're running a list on the restorationdomination.com website on books that have been mentioned, and then we're going to have a tally on how many people mention the same book over and over and over again. So
the bigger names that you see marketed all the time will come to mind. I listen and read a lot. I try to listen to and read it.
Absolutely.
Which is very good.
Yeah.
But a lot of them come to mind, but yeah, there's a lot of things, I wouldn't say they got me here, but they change the way you think. They change the way you react. They help you listen to other people. They help you, do a lot of things. And I just wish I did it a long time ago.
It's a good way to have a mentor, right? There's a lot of people that don't have, they weren't born into money. They weren't, they didn't come from a part of the, the neighborhood where they had easy access to great minds and great entrepreneurs. And when you think about the value that authors have taken, right? The amount of time, energy and resources that they've used in order to go ahead and allocate pen to paper to give you a playbook like that. Talk about intimate, right? So for me, one thing that I'm constantly driving is how can if I'm taking a drive from one project to another, I've got an audiobook on, right? Or if I got 15 minutes, I open up Blinkist, which is, 15 minute to 25 minute little reads, right? And basically like Cliff Note versions of books. And it's amazing. Sometimes something will come across that list and you're like, oh, wow, you know what? I was actually just faced with a very similar situation. I didn't think about it like this. And it just changes the makeup of the mind, and just really does add this whole new layer to like who you are and how you look at issues in your business, in your personal life, in your love life, whatever the case may be, whatever it is that you need work on. There's a book on it.
Yep.
which is really good. So Nick,
5-6 years ago is when I started it. But if the first 10 years, started my business at 24, no mentorship, started just grinding and learning, just one mistake after another, one thing just beating me up, getting frustrated. Like if somebody could come back and tell me that you could actually just take the time and read a book, which reading wasn't, anybody's thing when you're that age, and that you could just learn from other people's mistakes.
Right.
And I tell people now, the younger that I meet, and I'm trying to explain it to them, and it's hard to get it through to them. They make this version right here. They make one for teens. My 14-year-old's reading it right now, and it's actually taken effect.
That's amazing.
It's pretty good.
That's amazing. Getting them to read while they're young is amazing. So Nick, if someone wanted to go ahead and reach out to you, your company, where are the best channels for them to go ahead and reach out to?
They can just call the main line if they want. 888-450-PACK. That'll get us right to our main office. They can reach out to us. We're always on LinkedIn. Got a lot of people out there. Very simple. If they need any assistance with the contents, or maybe they have a situation where they pack something out or they need some help. If somebody's really looking to get a contents division going in their company, they're a certain size, I'd be happy to offer them some advice on how to get things going. But I do a much better job at closing down restoration contents divisions. A lot of the companies that I do work have done it, and the main problem is that they weren't able to get a regular amount of contents because when they marketed to other restoration contractors, they were a conflict. I've even acquired some equipment from some of these companies because we're not a conflict. We'll never step on anybody's toes. But yeah, they can reach out anytime. Our general email is info@packonthego. And of course, our website is packonthego.com.
Amazing, Nick. Well,
Plenty of
thank you
ways.
so much for spending the time with us here today.
You got it.
And guys, make sure that if you are on the market for a pack out company, if you're looking to go ahead and bring that on and offer it to your clients in a way that gives you peace of mind that the client's going to be well taken care of, make sure that you reach out to Pack on the Go. And again, Nick, thank you so much, and we'll catch you soon.
You've been listening to Restoration Domination, interviewing the restoration business's top industry insiders, the movers and shakers, the hustlers and hackers. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on Instagram. Find Rico at Rico Garcia Jr. Find Ecotech Pro at Ecotech Pro. And check out the YouTube channel at Ecotech Pro. Till next time, this is Restoration Domination. Hustle, hack, dominate.